sign. This week we're going to be talking about Taurus. Everything you ever wanted to know about Taurus Sun, Taurus Moon, Taurus Rising, and just general information about Taurus. We'll start with the basics. So this little guy is a symbol for Taurus. It looks like a little bull with horns. Taurus is traditionally seen as being ruled by the planet Venus, which makes a lot of sense. Venus is in the zodiac. It rules how we relate to money, how we relate to physical things, our experience with our bodies, and has an association with the pleasures of life and the pleasures of the physical experience of life, which are all related to Taurus. But there is a small contingent of astrologers who believe that Taurus is either co-ruled by the planet Earth or exclusively ruled by the planet Earth, and we're going to be talking about that a lot today because there are some ways that makes sense. Taurus rules the second house of the zodiac. The second house is the house of three things. It's the house of resources, it's the house of a sober second thought, and it's the house of bringing ideas into form. So resources is sort of self-explanatory. What resources is really about looking at your inner resources. What do you have that you can trade with the world in order to gain abundance and stability? Okay. 2, it's the sort of sober second thought, which is about, if you take away the past and the future, if you take away what has been and what may be, and you come into the present moment, into what exists right now, what does your life look like? And what decisions should you be making? And Taurus, more than any other sign, is associated with mindfulness, with presence in this moment. And it sort of lets go of magical thinking and just looks at what exists right now. So it does produce that sort of sober second thought mentality. And the third thing, of course, is bringing ideas into form. So the second house of the zodiac is about how you take something from a concept and you build it and you in the physical world, and then how you manage to make it effective and useful to people who are living in physical bodies and having a physical experience of life. The myth of Taurus. So basically, the god Jupiter takes the form, in this myth, takes the form of a white bull and goes about seducing Europa. He seduces her with his strength, with his peace. They sort of paddle across rivers together and play in sand and do all sorts of stuff like that. And eventually, when she falls in love with him, then he reveals his true self to her. And this myth, it really beautifully encapsulates a lot of things about Taurus. Basically Jupiter is this sort of ethereal form. He's this god that needs to come into having a physical experience of Earth in order to get what he wants. And so, that's what Taurus is about in a lot of ways. It's about, our first sort of initial physical experience of the world. It's about our experience of the body. It's our experience of three-dimensional reality. It's our experience of touching and experiencing physical things and finding a relationship with the earth, finding a relationship with things that we can touch, that we can feel, that we can enjoy. And also, in the myth, as this bull is this sort of peaceful, almost pastoral creature, Jupiter comes into this space where he seduces Europa with the physical pleasures of life. He seduces her by taking her to the most beautiful, locations that he can find. He seduces her by allowing her to feel the joy and pleasure of having sand, squish under your toes as you're running along a beach, or, the cool water on a hot day. So, part of his seduction of Europa is opening a doorway so she can experience the beauty and the physical pleasures of the earth and the physical pleasures of the physical body. That's his modus operandi when it comes to seduction. And those are all beautiful things when it comes to Taurus, which is very much about those physical sensations and a physical experience of the earth and the pleasures of the body and the pleasure of simplicity and the pleasure of simple things. And in some ways, Taurus is a very seductive force. It's seductive because it's connected to the body in a spiritual way. It's connected to the body in a really sort of visceral way. And true Taurus energy, when it's running in a really healthy way, is a very sort of sensual, dynamic energy. So Taurus is an earth sign, and it's the earthiest of all of the earth signs by far. Like I said, there's a lot of people who even believe that that Taurus is ruled by the planet Earth. And being an earth sign, it's about how you run through life. Okay, it's about it's not just about connecting to the earth. It's about the process through which you connect to your life and to other people. And as an earth sign, part of that process is that you're connecting from a place of groundedness, from a place of stability, of Taurus wants to do things in a slow, measured fashion that makes sense, right? Like Taurus doesn't necessarily want to give up what it already has for some dream of something that it could has. It's a grounded energy, and it takes things slowly, and it accepts that there's a process to things, and it has a willingness to accept that sometimes good things take time, and more than any other sign, it has a really it has a really dynamic and interesting relationship with time, which we're going to talk about later. But its willingness to accept time in a three-dimensional reality is a big part of Taurus. It's willingness to accept, to find patience, to do things in their own time, to let something turn from seed into sprout, into stalk, into flower, the sort of process and the patience that goes along with it. All of that is part of earth signs. So earth signs are about experience, as opposed to, they're not about thinking, they're not about doing, they're about experiencing, about letting things settle and set in the physical body and in the physical life. And as a result, all three earth signs, Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus, they have a common language that they speak. And part of that language is this willingness to let things set, this willingness to let things unfold. Not necessarily always in their own timing, but to take time to build great works, to take time to do great things. And also, I think just the willingness to experience the physicality of life, the willingness to touch the earth, to enjoy the earth, to find pleasure in the earth, and to accept that the earth runs on its own time. So there's definitely a connection between those three signs. And I always say this, and I think it's really important to say, is that just because you're Taurus doesn't mean you're only Taurus, right? So even if you're a Taurus sun, or you have, 6 planets in Taurus, it doesn't mean that's the only energy running in your chart. And if you're running a really strong Mars energy or a really strong Aries energy along with your Taurus energy, then your relationship with time is going to be very different than someone who's running a pure, sort of cleaner Taurus energy. But a clean, pure Taurus energy, or clean, pure Earth energy, has a willingness to accept process, and has a willingness to accept that sometimes things take time, and a willingness to accept that it takes perseverance and patience to build great works. So Taurus sun. So the sun in the chart, it represents who you are in stillness, when no one is around you and nothing is affecting you. And as a result, in some ways, it's sort of the purest expression of self. And it's typically how we perceive ourselves. So as we're going through the video, if you're a Taurus sun, you want to look at all the different subjects that we're going to talk about as like what you're capable of becoming. So if you sort of... it's who your soul is sort of wants you to evolve into, right? Like the pure, healthy form of Taurus is what your soul is trying to achieve in this life. And I want to say, I didn't say this before, but what I want to say, which I think is really important, is that there's a lot of other planets that are hanging out in Taurus and that are doing it for a long period of time. There's an intergenerational planet called Sedna that's hanging out in Taurus, for example, that makes running this energy in a healthy, peaceful way more difficult than a lot of the other signs. So you want to give yourself a little bit of a break and recognize that collectively and universally, we're all trying to heal this part of ourselves, heal our connection to the earth, heal our relationship with money, build systems and processes that honor everybody, and so if it's something that you're struggling with personally, you just have to be really patient with yourself and give yourself a pat on the back, because universally we're all struggling with it, and that struggle is just a little bit more challenging for you because you have this really important part of you that's identifying with this collective struggle that we're all experiencing. Taurus moon. Taurus, the moon in the chart, it represents our emotional body. So what we feel, what makes us feel, how we express those feelings, all those kinds of things. And so when you have a Taurus moon, you want to listen to this in terms of like, what is going to make you feel safe? What kind of energies you can draw into your life in order to come into a space where you feel safe and loved and supported and happy? And what kind of things come up in your life, or what kind of behaviors you're most likely to express when you don't feel safe and you don't feel okay, right? So you're sort of looking at this as like a tool to show you what your emotional body is experiencing right now and how to redirect that energy so that it's serving you in a better way. Taurus rising or ascendant. The rising sign or the ascendant is the lens through which the world perceives us. Most people would call it like personality. It's the thing that's most obvious about us when we first meet us. And the challenge, of course, with the rising sign is that quite often we don't perceive ourselves the same way that other people perceive us. So it's the thing that other people see about us, even if we can't see it in ourselves. And sometimes that can be challenging or triggering, all that kind of thing. And you want to kind of look at it a little bit in the same way, not exactly, but there are some similarities to looking at the Taurus moon sign, right? Like how if you're running sort of some of the less healthy energies of Taurus, what's going on in your life that's pushing you into running the energy in an unhealthy way, and what could you heal inside of yourself so that you start running it in a way that's healthy and self-honoring and that brings experiences where you feel loved and joy and passion and all those good things, instead of experiences where you feel victimized. Taurus, like I said earlier, there's this like contingent of astrologers who believe that it's actually ruled by the earth, because that's how deep the connection between Taurus and the earth is. Taurus is a sign. It's about coming into body. It's about finding pleasure in the physical form. It's about finding pleasure in, touching and being touched. It's about, this sort of visceral, intense connection with the earth itself. This, you think about that sort of bull in this pasture, just enjoying the smell of the grass and the feel of the dirt beneath its feet, and the feel of the air skimming across its back, and that on some level is this energy of Taurus, and that's what Taurus has to teach us. It has this incredible lesson for us about getting out of our minds and getting into our physical bodies and experiencing the joys and the pleasures of life and the joys and the pleasures of the earth. And for a lot of Tauruses, the relationship between them and the earth can be almost a spiritual experience. It can be where they feel, nature can be where they feel the most at peace. Nature can bring them solace in difficult times. It's a sort of really just intense spiritual connection to the earth and nature. And lots of people who are have really heavy Taurus, they might even be engaged in movements to help protect nature, or they feel a personal responsibility to nature. Those are all things that can come up when you have a strong Taurus in your chart. One of the big things about Taurus, this sort of energy, like I talked about earlier, is bringing ideas into form, like this thing of like, great, that plan sounds fantastic and dynamic, but how do we make it real, and how do we make it happen with the current resources that we have, and like, I think there's incredible beauty in Taurus because it lets go of magical thinking, and it lets go of fantastical thinking, and just allows us to look at the resources that we have and ask really serious questions about whether we're able to do what we need to do with those resources. And so Taurus has a really close relationship even with just making things with your hands, right? So building things, touching things, making things, it's a very tactile experience of life, Taurus, that they say that Taurus is associated with beauty, and that's true, but Taurus is associated with beauty that it can perceive through all five senses. It's not just about something that looks pretty, it's about something that feels smooth and beautiful against the skin. It's about something that smells gorgeous and fantastic. And so it's sort of this five senses experience of life, and all the senses are just as important as the others. And there's a lot of Taurus for that reason that are really tactile and that do like to build things and do like to shape things into form, and do like to make things that are beautiful. Typically someone with a strong, solid Taurus energy that doesn't have obviously it does depend what else is going on in your chart, but in its purest form, Taurus energy wants something that is beautiful, but in a simple way. It's not a lot of bells and whistles. It's something that is beautifully crafted by someone who built it with love, and something that is pleasing to all of the senses. And sometimes Taurus create those for themselves, and sometimes they buy them for other people. But there's a heart connection to those beautiful things that come from the earth and are shaped by, the hands of people who really care about what they're doing and are invested in it. There's, like I said, joy in physical experience. So, the physical pleasures of the world, the world, and the physical pleasures of the body, and all that kind of stuff. And so, part of a really healthy Taurus is someone who enjoys food, who enjoys honoring their body, who enjoys nurturing their body, who enjoys taking care of their body. And, like I said, it's all five senses, and one of those is taste. And so a really healthy, beautiful Taurus energy is someone who makes beautiful food, or someone who appreciates beautiful food, and who enjoys the physical experience of eating it, and who enjoys the physical experience of, touching it and smelling it and all that kind of stuff. So food and Taurus are closely related. And as a result, especially for someone like a Taurus moon, food is an emotional experience, and good food is important to them, and it's important to their lives. And of course, the physical experience. So Taurus energy is about enjoying the physical body, and part of enjoying the physical body is enjoying, being touched and touching others, and the physical sensations of life and the pleasure that can bring. And as a result, there's an incredibly sensual energy to someone who is running a really heavy Taurus. It's a visceral connection with the body. It's a physical connection with the body, and it's on some levels it's seeking pleasure in the flesh, and that can be a really beautiful thing. It can be a gift for them. It can be a gift for their partners. And I also, I don't know, it's hard to sort of articulate this, but I think there's really something very extraordinary when so many of us are detaching from our physical bodies and disappearing into our head, or playing with technology where we don't even know what's going on around us. I think that Taurus is such an important force in the world right now, because it draws us back into the present moment. It draws us back into our physical body, and it really forces us to look around us at what is, and find pleasure in every single moment, and find pleasure in this very finite period of time where we're given this incredible honor of being in this physical form. So there's something very, very beautiful about that, and very sacred about that. And I think there's something as a society that we should be looking at to allow more of us to come back into our physical bodies and learn how to experience the present moment. Mindfulness. So like I said, Taurus, all the signs have different relationships with time. Someone who's really heavy Taurus has a really unique experience with time. It's in its purest form, in its most healed form, in its highest form. Taurus is mindfulness. it's total presence in the moment. It's total acceptance with what is, and it's equanimity. It's accepting that life is exactly as it's supposed to be in every moment, and not striving for something different or pining for something that was. It's presence in this moment at this time with whatever is happening, and there's something really, really beautiful in that. I mean, we're going to talk about this later. There are ways that an unhealed Taurus or someone who's experiencing emotional triggers tries to escape from the moment. But in its purest form, I think that Taurus is actually the sign most associated with mindfulness out of all of them. It's this willingness to experience the body, to experience the motions that are going on around you without trying to change or fix them. And it's this sort of willingness to stay present with what is. Healing. So I think this is really important for Taurus. Well, it's important for all the signs, I suppose. But one of the big things we want to talk about when we talk about Taurus moons, someone who's a Taurus moon needs an outlet for emotion. You need to find a way to get clogged emotions out of your body. You need to find a way to heal yourself. You need to find a way to release emotions that are stuck inside of you. And, Taurus have a very physical experience of emotion. So sometimes when you have a Taurus moon, you have someone who holds on to emotion, and then it gets trapped and clogged inside of your body, and it turns into illness, or it turns into aches or pain or repetitive injuries or all of those kinds of things. And basically the reason for that is because it's sort of a block of energy in your body that's created by the fact that you're experiencing your emotions in your physical form instead of in your sort of emotional form. And it's not for everyone, but the point is that someone who has heavy Taurus energy, as in a Taurus moon, you want to be very careful with your body. You want to be very honoring towards your body, and you want to learn to release those emotions. And so emotional release for a Taurus moon is emotional release through the physical body. You want to look at things like Tai Chi or yoga, or even just physical exercise to run out your emotions, to cycle out your emotions, to swim out your emotions, to find a physical release for your emotions through movement of the flesh and movement of the body. But anyone with a really strong Taurus should really consider the importance of movement. It doesn't have to be fast movement. It doesn't have to be competitive movement. It's just that you need to physically connect to the earth. You need to, have bare feet on soil. You need to go out in nature and take the time to reconnect to the earth. You need to move your body in ways that allow those sort of blocks of energy to flow freely. And my two favorite forms are Tai Chi and yoga, but I'm sure there's 1,000 other ways that you can get it out. It's just the fact that you need to move in order to release. You need to move in order to be energetically strong and clean and clear. So we talk about this for all of the different signs. Like, all signs have behaviors or things that come up when they're hurt, right? So if you're really hurt, we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can see the hurts that you're experiencing, or ways that your soul is trying to communicate that there's something that needs to be shifted, there's something that needs to be healed. And one of the biggest ones for Taurus is disordered eating. So someone who has who doesn't feel safe, or who has, like I said, that emotion that's clogged through their entire body and they don't know how to get it out, So someone who feels betrayal or victimization, or feels unsafe, or feels all these uncomfortable, awkward feelings that they don't know how to express, or that they're unwilling to express, or that they're hiding from. It manifests in disordered eating. And so disordered eating can be anything from someone who binge eats to someone who counts every calorie that they eat. It can be, someone who becomes so obsessed with healthy eating that they don't actually allow themselves the pleasure of the physical body anymore. They don't allow themselves to have that beautiful food that they long for, because they've convinced themselves that they have to eat in this very sort of patterned, rigorous, controlled, methodical way. So, it can be anyone who's hyper controlled in their eating and incredibly restrictive, to someone who binge eats, to someone who every time they have a bad day, shoves down their emotions with ice cream or pizza or 3 helpings of something when it should be 2, all of those kinds of things. So, when there's an ouch, when things hurt, when it's really difficult time in your life, you find Taurus has a real experience with disordered eating. Now, like I talked about earlier, we have a universal thing going on where we have a planet called Ascendant in Taurus, so a lot of us have this feeling of betrayal from our bodies. We have this feeling of betrayal from the people who are producing our food. We have this feeling of betrayal for all this kind of things, and it's certainly not exclusive to Taurus. But the thing that's nice about Taurus, I think, is that that when you're going through that disordered eating, it's your soul, your spirit saying to you, something's wrong here and we need to heal it and we need to fix it and we need to move on. And part of moving on is reconnecting to your physical body, getting to this place where you remember how wise your physical body is, and you remember that your physical body is the one with the answers, and that you don't need charts, and you don't need to count numbers, and you don't need to follow the specific set of rules. You need to learn how to eat intuitively. You need to learn how to eat naturally, and you need to come back into a space where you love your body and you listen to it and you value what it has to say, instead of punishing it for not looking the way that it's supposed to look, or even, keeping it under, a really tight leash because you're afraid that you're going to lose control because you love food, right? Just because you love food doesn't mean you're going to have disordered eating. So it's a real process of finding balance, making peace with your body, coming back into your body, and learning to listen to the wisdom of your body. And I talk about this a lot with people. Your body's extraordinary. If you get a flu, I have a little bit of cold right now, so I'm a classic example, right? So if you get a little bit of a cold, your body, the reason it raises its temperature is because it knows that the virus can't sustain the conditions that are created by the raised temperature. So your body is smart enough to increase the temperature of your entire body to fight an infection. It's smart enough to know whether you should eat an apple or a piece of bread. It knows the truth. It knows the wisdom. It knows the nutrients that it needs. And you just have to learn to tune into that and learn how to listen to that instead of fighting your body and seeing it as your enemy. And so disordered eating is a big thing, especially around people who have a 12th house Taurus, or who have a Taurus moon. And the other thing too, it's, Taurus loves beautiful things, like I said, artisan things that are, beautiful and lovely to touch and lovely to smell, and just, gorgeous, fabulous, fantastic things. And so as a result, when there's an ouch, when you're being triggered, when you're going through something, when you're running away from an emotion that you don't know how to experience or you don't know how to feel, you have to be careful for splurging or shopping in excess, right? You have to be careful to not spend money you don't have. And that's not to say that you shouldn't buy beautiful things. It's just to make sure that you're sitting back and having that sober second thought first, you're running in that healthy Taurus energy that says, hey, I should sit down and think about whether I can do this right now and still be safe, whether I can do this right now and still, pay my mortgage or my car bill, or make sure that my daughter can afford to have her ballet lessons or soccer lessons or whatever, right? So it's this sort of energy that yes, Taurus wants to be surrounded by beautiful things. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anyone tell you that there is. We're here to have a physical experience of life, and there's something innately beautiful about buying things that are handcrafted, that buying things that are beautiful and surrounding yourself with that beauty. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. It's why we're here, is to experience the physical beauty of life and part of that is experiencing beautiful things, but you should be careful that you're not trying to fill an emotional hole with beautiful things or expensive things or fancy things or top of the line things that you can't really afford, and as a result are sacrificing something else that's more important in order to obtain. And so, it's the same kind of thing. You want to focus on the sober second thought. You want to twist that energy of Taurus and buy something that's beautiful that you can afford. Or you want to, I don't know, Taurus has a relationship with the hands. Maybe it's about making something that's beautiful or getting your hands on something that's beautiful. It's about crafting something or creating something, or just, buying something that is not going to hurt you to buy, right? And that's like accessible. So part of a healthy Taurus is having a balanced relationship with food, and part of a healthy Taurus is learning how to have a balanced relationship with money. Not judge yourself for, liking money, not judge yourself for liking nice things, but come into a space where you're doing it in a responsible way. Where's the ouch? Stubbornness. All right, I'm going to be totally honest. I have a Taurus rising, and this one comes up for me all the time. So, when, Taurus, like I said, naturally there's this sort of energy of like experiencing what is in this moment, right? And just being present in the moment. And the challenge is, even though that's a really good thing, sometimes what happens is we resist any change to what is, right? We sort of make peace with what is, we feel stable with what is, we kind of get comfortable in a particular spot, and we get to a point where no one can suggest any change to us at all, because we feel safe where we are, and we know that any change is going to make us unstable, and we don't like a lack of stability. We want to feel comfortable where we are. We want to feel safe, and we can accept the situation that we're in. We don't want to change it. So a big part of when there's something that's not right going on for Taurus, we have this sort of energy that comes up, which is a stubbornness, which is like I'm not willing to change anything. I'm not willing to shift anything. I'm not willing to do anything different, because what I'm doing right now, it might not be working fabulously, but it's still working. And any of those shifts or change are going to feel uncomfortable for me, so I don't want to do it. So there's definitely sort of this energy of stubbornness, and part of how you come through that, and part of how you heal that, and part of how you come out of it is to come into a space where you change your definition of what stability is, where stability is it's within yourself instead of outside of yourself. So where stability is where you get to a place where you can control your own emotional body. That's not to say that you shouldn't feel what you feel, but where you have put mechanisms in place where you feel safe feeling things that are uncomfortable to feel, where you find stability in a practice of mindfulness or of meditation or of prayer if you're a religious person, or if you're an atheist, then it doesn't matter. You could have a practice of walking in the woods 3 times a week that brings you down to back to center and back to stable. So it's creating structures in your life that allow you to feel stable and at the same time open you up to change. Because if you're not open to change, then nothing new can come into your life, and then you're stuck where you are forever. And that's not good for anybody. There's beautiful things, beautiful doors that are just waiting to open, and stubbornness prevents us from being able to open them. So we have to find a new definition of stability, and we have to create ways that we feel stable so that we can accept change and be as stable as we can throughout it. Where's the ouch? Possessiveness. So it's very similar. It's very related, right? So that stubborn kind of like unmovable energy is because we don't want to experience change, right? We want to be we want to feel stable and centered, and not have to have a whole bunch of new stuff happen. And that's related to possessiveness, right? Like it's holding on to what you have with every ounce of your energy, because losing it means change. Losing it means a lack of stability. And I think it's also because Taurus has such a huge association with pleasure, right? So if something feels really good, you want to hold on really tight to make sure it doesn't go away, right? So it's all related to that. But of course, you have to look at the fact that like the reason that you feel possessiveness is, or that you're trying to hold on so tight, is because on some level you don't trust the person you're trying to hold on to not to abandon you, right? Or, when it comes to possessions, you're holding on so tight, or a job, you're holding on so tight because you don't trust that the universe isn't going to, yank it out from under your feet. So, part of the journey of Taurus is trust. It's equanimity. It's learning how to make peace with what is in the moment, and learning that the next moment won't be the same as this one, and to make peace with that too. So it's learning to be present in your life. It's learning to be present in your body, and it's learning to make peace with the fact that change is a part of life. And that's really hard for Taurus. It's not easy. It's a lifelong lesson. But like I said, it's about coming up with a set of things that aren't going to change, that you do have control over. And usually that's, coming up with a response that you're going to have, training yourself into a particular behavior or technique or strategy that allows you to have some stability in your life. So every time you're having a bad day, going for a walk in nature, or having some sort of yoga or Tai Chi practice to constantly clear out that energy. But you change and redefine what stability is so that you can feel safe with the change that's inevitable in life. And part of that change is letting go of things that are no longer a fit for you. And part of accepting that is letting go of this sort of possessiveness that you have around the things that you own. And, I see this one a lot. Like when I'm reading about Taurus, I see this sort of anger a lot. And I guess it's kind of true that, Taurus has anger, but I think all the signs do. And I don't think it's any more excessive in Taurus than it is in any other sign. The challenges or the differences that I think that Taurus energy is, it's in the body and it's under the surface. And it's sort of like this sort of thicker, slower moving, heavier energy. And I think that what happens, the reason that Taurus is associated with anger is just because it boils beneath the surface for a really, really long time before it sprouts. And I think that by the time it sprouts, it feels really, really intense and really, really strong. But that's only because it's been sort of simmering beneath the surface for a really long time unexpressed. So I don't think Taurus has any more anger than anyone else. I think that what happens is that Taurus bottles their anger for so long that by the time that it comes out, it's like a volcanic eruption. And, the truth is that that's just it's your higher self or your soul or your heart or your body screaming, not only is this not okay, but you haven't dealt with it for a really long time, and I'm not doing this anymore because it really, really, really hurts. So anger is just a really beautiful compass for you. It's like if you get to a point where you're angry, it's because there's something really wrong and something that really needs to be addressed and something that really needs to be fixed. So it's about pulling back from this idea that there's something wrong with your anger and coming into a space where you deal with it, and you deal with it as thoroughly as you possibly can so that you can come into a better, healthier place. And I like to say, of course, that, like, and I've said this throughout, but I want to say again that, like, I'm talking about pure Taurus energy here, right? If you have heavy Aries in your chart, then, or a really strong Mars, for example, then it's a different interpretation. Or even if you're just really heavy in the fire signs. So if you have a strong Sagittarius, Aries, or a little bit of Leo in your chart, then, you're naturally going to be running a little bit of that anger underneath the surface, because that's part of the expression of those energies, much more so with Aries than the other two, but part of that expression. So, if you have like a combo where you're having like lots of fire in your chart, and then you have a Taurus moon, then of course anger is going to be bubbling beneath the surface because it's part of what you're here to learn. But in a pure sort of Taurus-y fashion, anger is not a big part of the sign. It's just that its lack of expression can lead to someone sort of blowing up because they've tolerated something for much too long, and finally their heart or their soul or their spirit is screaming no. And And so then we end up with possibilities, right? So, what it looks like when it's beautiful and happy and healthy and fabulous. And I love Taurus energy. It's so gorgeous and it's so beautiful, and it has so much potential, and it has so much to offer the earth. And we're going to look at it in like 3 different ways. So like a really happy, healed, beautiful, high octave, high vibration Taurus. It's someone who loves their body, who finds incredible pleasure and joy and awe in being in the physical world, who really connects to everything that the body has to offer, who honors their heart and their lungs and their spleen and their kidneys, and just is grateful, profoundly grateful for the physical experience of life that they've been gifted with. And life is such a short period of time. It's such a finite experience. And if you don't believe in past lives, it's an even shorter finite experience. But even if you do believe in reincarnation, then you know that you only have these tiny little snippets of time that you get to spend on the planet in this body, learning what you're going to learn and experiencing what you're going to experience. And you should honor your soul's choice to be in this body. And part of honoring your soul's choice to be in this body is loving your body. It's treating it with respect and kindness. It's treating it as sacred and beautiful. And so a pure Taurus energy is really about coming into a space where you make peace with your body, and where you love your body, and where you honor your body, and where you tap into your natural wisdom of your body and use it for what it is, this beautiful living vessel that's honoring your soul by holding it inside. It's about healing that relationship and helping other people to heal that relationship too. And that's how you eat. It's how you choose to move your body. It's your internal monologue, how you talk to your body, how you behave towards your body, how you touch your body. All that kind of stuff is really, really important for a Taurus. The second picture here is glass blowing, which I think is just a really beautiful, gorgeous art. And I think in its purest form, Taurus does, when it comes to beautiful things, it does, 2 things. Either it's it has this incredible potential, Taurus energy, to create things that are beautiful, that take the incredible gifts of nature and turn them into things that are, gorgeous, that are creative and engaging, and that tell a story, and that send a message, and that let people feel things. This sort of Taurus energy has the ability to create these majestic, incredible environments that people can be in, that, help them heal from the tumultuous experiences that they're having in the outside world. It's about building a space to come home to that feels safe and beautiful and honoring and fabulous. And so Taurus does that in 2 ways, either, like I said, in creating those beautiful objects themselves, or in appreciating them. As someone who creates things, there's nothing that's more of a blessing or more beautiful or more gorgeous than someone who values something that I've created, and I'm not talking about creating art, but anyone who puts something out into the world and it meets someone who values what they put out into the world, that person is giving you a gift and it's propelling you forward. So Taurus's ability to appreciate the beauty of life and the beauty of the physical experience and the beauty of things, that's a gift to everyone. It sends an energy of appreciation out into the world. It sends an energy of appreciation to the planet that we live on, and that's a really high vibrating energy, and it's an incredible gift for everyone who comes into contact with. The third picture here is of a house, and I think, Taurus, we think a lot of times about Taurus coming home, and I've kind of explained it a little bit in the other section, right? But basically, in its purest form, Taurus creates just beautiful environments and beautiful spaces, and creates stability and comfort so that you can come home to yourself, and that you can come home to your body, and that you can come home to something that makes you and everybody else feel good and safe and honored. And I think it's an extraordinary gift for yourself. It's an extraordinary gift for your body, and it's an extraordinary gift that you give the world. And the last one, the big picture at the top, of course, is someone meditating in nature, and I think that's very much a part of Taurus. Taurus in its purest form is very zen, is very connected to the earth, is very present in the moment, and has this ability to tune in to themselves, to their body, to their lives, to the earth that they stand on, and realize the sacredness of life, and realize the sacredness of the earth and the beauty of the earth. So, in its purest form, this is Taurus. And I also wanted to say that, like, in the, ancient astrologers, they believed that Buddha was a Taurus rising, and that's what he was coming into, is this peace with the earth, and this peace with himself, and this peace with his body, and this peace with his, in the very moment. And I think that, the evolution of Taurus energy, the beauty of Taurus energy, is coming into that space of peace and mindfulness and equanimity, and loving the world that you're in, and appreciating every moment that you get to spend in your body. Thank you very much for listening. This is Bonnie with Heal with Astrology. Check out our other videos at www.healwithastrology.com/e-courses. Thanks so much.